Hey, and welcome back to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our robot model. So in the last one we sort of fixed up our hand and we did our sort of the rubbery waist bit. So now we'll move on to doing the sort of metal hip part. So hopefully this shouldn't take too long. I say that all the time, but it probably will. But yeah, hope you've been enjoying this little tutorial series and really look forward to seeing what you make from it. So yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help. Yeah, I appreciate all your feedback and your comments and all your likes and stuff. So yeah, so let's get going, and thanks for watching. Cool. So in our previous one, we sort of made this little bit in here to hide some of that, so you don't see as much. And then we went through and did this, which was pretty simple. So now, without going on, we're going to go on and build these hips bit. So if we look at it, it's probably not too complicated. We can see it's split in the seam there, and if we look at some of our, let's try and find some other reference where we can see his hips. Cool, and it just looks like it's split down the middle. You can't really see it there, but then there's just like two holes for his hips, or the sort of the joints. These do look like we can reuse some of these bits. They're not quite the same shape as that though, so we might have to modify that, but we're not doing that yet. We're just gonna do this. So if we just go to our front, sorry, excuse me, bring back our reference. And it's always quite hard to tell because obviously it's been posed, but I'd say the hips are very, very slightly sort of like a bit smaller than the actual waist of this. So what we'll probably do is actually start with a sphere. We'll bring this down. It should be at the center. And we can sort of see that it's not really it's spherical, but it looks more like, so if we kept it spherical, it'd look very much like that. But it looks more like it's a squashed sort of spherical look. So I'm going to actually just assume that that's the top. Delete that. And like as always, I'm just going to do like a blocking pass so I can get the look that I want. I'm just going to scale this. And obviously ours is, so like in the pose, it's kind of like tilted down like that. So we don't really want to like match it because we might be making it a little bit too shallow. So we're going to kind of use what we can see here and I'll sort of guesstimate kind of what looks good as well. So that would actually be there, because we do see that quite clearly. So this might actually be a bit, we might need to reiterate on the size of that, but let's bring this up. It's a tiny bit scale down. So I'm just making it so it's just very slightly thinner than the sort of the body part. But we might have to reiterate on some of these bits here. But I think in that, something like that's pretty good. So I'm just going to go back to my perspective, turn that reference off. And you can probably guess what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make a template with this, because we do actually have some quite a complex shape in there. So first of all, I'm just going to, sorry, suddenly just got hiccups. I'm going to build this base shape. See if we can see where those legs are. Kind of look, this probably rotates, so I imagine this is probably the leg holes are right in the center. So I'm just gonna bevel this. It's not a, if I just press 3 now, like sort of conceptualize where this is going to go. If I create another sphere, bring this down. Because we're still at the origin, let's just turn our wireframe on shaded on so we can always use it as a reference. We're still aligned to that. So I'm just going to roughly block out where this hole is. So I could actually go to my front view again and turn back on my reference. Let's just hide that for now. I'm just going to scale this down. It's quite difficult to see how big that is, but remember that's if we're trying to sort of get that shape that's here, a hole is actually quite a bit bigger. So we can use that as a template. So if our actual leg hip is going to be that big, so I'm just going to duplicate that and just call this joint ref. Just hide that. So another thing is kind of, that's obviously going to be like slightly bigger. And I've not moved it forward or backwards because we're going to assume this is straight down the middle. And we want to kind of so let's just do that minus 10. Just going to duplicate that and press that on 10. So don't forget that's the hole. That's not where the legs are. So I feel like they are kind of a little bit too far apart, the holes, because we're not effectively looking at these bits. We're looking at where the holes would reside. Let's change it to 9.6. So I feel that's probably a fairly decent place for the holes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to have a look at the shape a bit more. So I feel like it's probably a bit too scaled down, made it a bit flat. So I've still got quite a bit of curve there, but let's just bring these down slightly. Cool. So I'm just gonna, I can duplicate this if I want and hide it. I do that all the time and it's probably like unnecessary, but it's just, I don't know, I like doing it sometimes, can't really explain it, but cool. So now we're just gonna make a template, and like we do on all the other ones, we will, because we've kept this uniform, we only really have to do a quarter. Then we can duplicate it across. Then there'll be a gap there, which you can just about see here. And then it will just be duplicated back. So we only don't have to do all this, we just have to do the geo that works here. So I'm just gonna mesh combine that. And what I'll do, I'll just save it as well. And you can see I save it quite a lot. I'm on my version 28 now. I'm just going to delete the history. And then I'm going to make live. And just do the same as what I've done before. Quad draw. And I will start with here. I'm just going to try and evenly get this round, because this is where a hole's going to be. And like I say, I probably say this a lot, but I do this a lot for doing shapes which involve different. So, see, it's being a bit funny. That's because we actually have a smooth wireframe on. So I will actually mesh and smooth that one more time. Just so we're getting we're getting this curve nicely and this sort of radius nicely as well. So we'll just reiterate on those corners. And you can see now it's actually snapping, going to the right place in the mesh that I wanted. Don't know what that is doing there, but we're on 10 minutes. Hopefully this one shouldn't actually be that long, but I feel like every time I say it won't be long, it ends up being very long. But yeah, so you don't have to watch all these because there are lots of different techniques, but generally this is one that I enjoy doing because it means I don't have to like figure out topology as I go along. I can just rough it out. That's why making the block modeling is so important. So you can get decent proportions and a decent idea of the sort of task at hand. So I do want to spread these out now. I feel like I may have added too many in there maybe. So I could probably get rid of that one. Just spread these out a bit. Cool. So I don't know why I was doing that. I always, when I'm doing something, I always like to, I don't know, it's just force a habit. I always like to make sure I've got a sort of a supporting edge loop for anything that's going to be subdivided and have some sort of interesting shapes, which I'll probably class it as an interesting shape because we've got two different sort of curvatures working with each other. Cool. Might need to. Ooh. No, need to move that. Hopefully this shouldn't take too long, but Maybe we can try and attempt to go for every two on here. Might be a bit tight, but we'll see how it looks, and we can always adjust it afterwards. I'm just working from where I know I'm going to need to join. Not too worried about it being absolutely perfect as of yet, because I don't really want to do that yet, because I will need a lot of edge loops. I can just scale those roughly afterwards. Just match 3, and so I'm doing, oh, that's not 3, that's 4. So 3 high and 2 across. Just trying to roughly match that. And we could probably use that as a patch at the end, but we do need to make sure that we keep an eye on all this down here, and our edge loops are working nicely. I know it looks a little bit like a mess now, but we can relax all this once we've got a reasonable amount of edge loops in there. So I'm just going to continue matching 3 up and 2 across. So we're sort of getting there. Still going to have to sort of figure out, because we've obviously got a massive stretch here now, which is not good. So let's relax this and see where we get with it. It's actually down the center. Yeah, it is. We've got 2, 2, 2. That'd be 2, 2 there, 2 there. So let's just bring these all up so they're matching. Like I say, this is still just rough, so don't worry if it's all that matters right now is that we're actually getting the topology correct. So we could do that. We just added an edge loop in. We're just going to create this supporting edge loop so we can relax it all around it. And I'm sure you guys have similar tools. If you're using different software, I'm sure you have similar tools which can do the same sort of job. So if you're not following in Maya, it doesn't necessarily matter so much. Cool. Probably could have made this edge loop go into there. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue, so it should be fine. Let's turn this off. Let's go to our vertex. I'm just going to select them all and scale them flat. Then I'm going to snap them to that center vertex. I'm going to do the same here. Scale W and snap them to there. Cool. So in theory, if we just smooth that now, we should have a nice panel shape. It's a little bit funny here, but all we need to do now is if we just delete the history, Control D, minus in the 1. That's it. You can use the mirror tools. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to hide that. And I'm just going to go Mesh, Combine, Vertex. Select these and Mesh and Merge. So you can raise the threshold just in case. It should get it. You can press 3, check it's all done, and it is. So I'm just going to bring back this, going to make it live again. Then just use my quad draw one more time to relax these sort of pointy edges out. Because now we'll get a much nicer sort of result from our relaxing the mesh. Because it's working in a sort of a uniform way across our base template. It is a little bit funny up here. We probably could have got this edge loop to go round and back into there, which wouldn't have been too much of an issue. We just moved this pole a bit further up to match this one and there, but it shouldn't matter so much. The mesh is still good. As we relax it, it's making everything very uniform. So when we do subdivide it, we shouldn't really be getting any creases. Not promising anything, but if you've kept it very clean, you should be all right. Cool. Just going to turn that off. Just going to isolate that. And we should be all good, actually, to be honest. All we need to do now is select our faces. And we can Control E. And you can choose to go thickness inwards. Obviously, it will reverse our mesh. But because we have no sharp edges, like previously when we had quite sharp edges, doing it inwards caused a little bit of an issue. So like if you see here, it's a sort of merging it all into a bit, but we should be fine. Oh, actually no, let's not do that yet. We still need to do this top bit. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I thought we were almost finished, but fortunately not. So I still got this. So I probably could actually just smooth this. One more. Cool, so then we just reuse that bit as a patch. You're more than welcome to sort of just model it if you want. Not too fussed. If I can reuse stuff, obviously we've got some sort of misalignment here, which should be fine because we'll just use we'll just mesh and combine. And what I will do, I was just going to go mesh, edit mesh, merge center. I'll just press, I'm going to press G on all them, just so I know that it's definitely merging. And you can use the merge vertices if you want and set the threshold a bit higher, but I just prefer to do it this way sometimes. So if I press 3, doesn't seem to have made any difference. What we can do, we can bring that back just in case. Oh, let's not bring. Yeah, it's basically not doing anything, so that's fine. And that will be like that because it's smoothed. Cool, so now we've got that. We probably actually want to make this. Let's just smooth this. I'm just going to extrude this down. Get rid of that. And get rid of all that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Cool. I don't think we need to do anything else on the inside, so we are now we are done, so we can actually select our faces. And that's a little bit more complex, so when we do Control E, it might do some funky stuff on the insides. But if we keep it fairly reasonable, it will just kind of create a bevel on the inside. We do need to check all the edges though. Yeah, that seems fine. So I'm just going to mesh display and reverse that. And probably don't need all this inside bit either. That's going to take up a lot of UV space, but we can shrink it down. We can have an unwanted UV space basically, which is kind of like things we can shrink down in the UVs and sort of hide them away. So if I press smooth, I know that's probably going to do that. So we will just bevel that, put a little bevel on it, just so it's not so crazy. Then just need to go around and just make sure that I do select all the edges this time and not miss any, so I don't have to fix it again. A little bit of like a kink there. We'll investigate that after we smooth this out. Cool. I thought that wasn't beveling then, but it was just a trick of the eye. So I'm going to go around and just check all these edges. Especially in this where it's pinched. Well, not pinched, but quite a sharp edge. Just going to bring that up to 0.3, make it a little bit bigger. Cool. So I've got this little kink here, which is kind of, I wonder where that's come from. Looks like it's a mix of both of these. Doesn't seem like that's causing any issues, but it's good to check. It's causing an issue here for me. I don't really like that, how that's gone a bit crooked, so I will. Possibly something that just went a little bit funny with the quad draw that we just might have missed. Anyway, so I'm just going to go shading, turn my wireframe shaded off. It's looking pretty good. We've got a pretty decent shape. Got what we wanted. So what I will do is now press Insert, Hold V, and just snap that to my furthest edge. Then I can Control D and minus it in the Z. -1 in the Z. Cool. So now that's made our hip. We don't really have much of a gap, so we can maybe just like -0.05 and do 0.05 on that side, just so we've got, maybe it's a little bit too much for cool. But now we've got our hips. So yeah, yeah, we're on half an hour. Didn't take too long, and yeah. So on the next one, we'll do so. We'll probably try and reuse. You can slightly see that pole there, but once the texturing's on, it should be fine. And yeah, we'll go through and reuse some of these bits. So we'll just Control G, group that, call that hips. Just delete the history of it. Cool, yeah, so we're pretty much done. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. We're getting near the end. I think I say we've got through most of the most complex stuff. I don't think these feet will be too difficult. Hands were probably actually, hands and eyes are probably the worst, but a lot of this is reuse of stuff that we've already got. So yeah, if you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It means the world to me when you do. It makes me happy, and yeah, I hope you're enjoying the tutorials. But yeah, let's see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.